Hi everybody, Rob here in Bakersfield, California, and welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday. Today's story is going to be about another bogus complaint filed against me. Actually, there was two complaints in one. So, let me get to the story. I was assigned to Eastern Division, the day watch, and I'd been given beat 46 as my personal beat. I was the head patrol officer for that beat, working Unit 46 John, a one-man unit. When I took over that beat, it had a lot of trouble with residential burglaries, a lot of calls for alcohol and drug use in the parks, behind the stores, and at the dead ends of cul-de-sacs. A lot of truancy from kids skipping school. So when I first took over, I figured the first thing I would do is eliminate the truancy problem by rounding up the kids and taking them back to school. That would also eliminate a lot of the residential burglaries because most of them were being committed by the kids skipping school. And also eliminate all the calls for kids drinking and smoking in the parks and behind the stores and in the cul-de-sacs. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I'd round the kids up, take them back to school. First offense. Second offense, I'd round them up, take them back to the station, call their parents, and make their parents come get them, take them back to school. And I usually didn't have a third offense with the truancy. I did the same thing with the drinking and the smoking in the parks and behind the stores and in the dead ends of the alleys and stuff. First offense, I'd usually just take them home to mommy and daddy and turn them over. If mom and dad were at work and weren't there, then I had to take them back to the station, call the parents to come from work and pick up the kids. And I normally didn't push through the paperwork and have them charged on the first offense. I'd always warn them second time around they were going to get charged. And I usually got a lot of cooperation from the kids and the parents that way. I had one kid though, 17-year-old high school dropout, lived at home with his single mom who worked during the days. He had a younger brother and a younger sister. And he basically supported himself by dealing drugs in the neighborhood and ripping off cars at night for stereos and selling them and ripping off all his neighbors during the daytime. How'd I know this? Because the other kids in the neighborhood told me so. I had caught him a couple of times with the groups, and I had taken him home to mommy once. I called and had her come get him a second time, and a third time. And I don't know how many times I had picked this kid up, but the last time around was I caught him back behind the stores with a bunch of younger kids drinking, smoking pot. Well, I snatched him up and let all the other kids run off. Didn't really care much about them at that time. I figured I'd catch them next time around. So I handcuff him up, do a pat-down search, and find a vial of cocaine in his pocket and 3 bags of marijuana. So along with just arresting him for being underage with alcohol and smoking pot, I charged him with possession of the cocaine and possession of marijuana for sales. Took him back to the station, stuck him in the holding room, called mommy to come get him from work. Well, mommy's one of these types where her angel could do no wrong. She comes to the station to get him. First thing she does is accuse me of having a personal vendetta against her kid and planting the drugs on him. Complains to anybody around that'll listen. Complained to the sergeant, didn't get much out of him. Complained to the lieutenant, didn't get much out of him. So she took her kid and went on home. Well, we're getting close to time to have to go to court on this. A couple weeks before, and I come back in off my days off of work. I get called into the sergeant's office, and he asked me if I know so and so. I go, well, yeah, that's that woman that was in here complaining, saying I had a personal vendetta against her kid and planted the drugs on him. going to be going to court on him in a couple weeks here. He says, well, she came into the substation and filed a complaint against you. She claims that you followed her son in an undercover car down to the beach, handcuffed him, beat him up, and robbed him of his money, then turned him loose. And she claims that the next day you came to her house, kicked the front door open, and went through and searched her whole house looking for drugs and money, and scared her three kids, the two boys and the girl. And she wanted to file a formal complaint against you. So we had to go through the whole investigation. Well, as it turns out, the first day that I supposedly followed him downtown, or down to the beach in an undercover car, and arrested him and took him back from some alley and beat him up and stole all his money and then turned him loose, I was on patrol that whole day. Every minute of my day was documented. All the sergeant had to do was go pull the daily logs, and sure enough, there it was, my whole proof, my alibi, whatever, to prove she was just full of crap. Okay, second day that I supposedly came to her house in my patrol car in full uniform and kicked in her front door and tore her whole house apart searching for drugs and money and scared her kids, I was off that day. I had spent that whole day in court testifying in other cases. All the sergeant had to do was call down to the court, check with the court liaison officer, and sure enough, there it was in the record. I was there, I was in this courtroom testifying at this time, I was in this courtroom testifying at that time on this case, so on and so forth. And the only time I had a break was during lunch. So, absolved of that one. So the sergeant gets back in touch with the woman, tells her that both complaints are going to be filed as unsubstantiated because there's no proof, and that basically she's full of shit. Well, she comes out with, okay, well, it must have been different days. She must have had her days mixed up. She still wants to file these complaints. So he lets her know that, okay, fine, you want to file a complaint. It's going to be a formal complaint. It's going to be investigated by IAB. And if it comes out that you are lying, we are going to press charges against you for filing a false police report, and you're going to be open to a lawsuit for slander. Well, then she decides she's going to just drop the whole thing, right? Well, I still have to sign both of these unsubstantiated bullshit cases, and they both go into my jacket, my personnel file. My just resorts come around, though, a couple weeks later. We have to go to court, juvenile court, which is totally different than adult court. You go into juvenile court, and the judge calls you up there and asks you, okay, what are the circumstances of what you arrested this kid for? So I lay out the whole history. Why I knew this kid, why I was keeping an eye on him, and why I arrested him, what I found on him. I showed the judge all the confiscated evidence, the cocaine and the marijuana. So the next thing the judge wants to know is, well, how did the parents react when you took him back home, turned him over to him, or when they had to come to the station house to pick him up? I told the judge about her attitude, about her basically accusing me of having a personal vendetta against her kid and planting the drugs on him. And the judge asked, well, is there anything else that you want to add to this case? And I tell him, yeah. So I tell the judge the story I just told you about her coming into the station and filing the 2 bogus complaints against me to get me in trouble. Basically accusing me of excessive force, strong arm robbery, breaking and entering. You know, it's ridiculous. Well, judge thanks me, tells me I could sit down, that's it, you know, so I sit down. And the judge takes and lays into the mother. Reads her up one side and down the other. Gives her one big old lecture. And then it comes time to sentence the kid. He threw the book at the kid. He gave him 60 days in a county juvenile rehabilitation camp and a year's probation. Normally, the kid probably would have got off with a slap on the wrist, and that would have been it. Because of Mommy's actions, he got shafted big time. Now you wonder, okay, whatever happened to the kid? All I know is that later on down the line, I heard that the kid gotten out of the 60-day stint. He came back home for about a week, packed up and moved out and went down to live at the beach somewhere with a bunch of other dopers that were living down there on the beach area. So never heard from him again. But every time I'd drive through that neighborhood and patrol the neighborhoods, you know, make sure that nothing else had started up in the neighborhoods, and I'd see Mommy or his little brother, they'd flip me off and cuss me out. All the other neighbors in that neighborhood would come out, stop me, shake my hand, and thank me for getting rid of the worst piece of shit in the neighborhood. I guess she eventually got the hint, because about a year later she packed up and moved out of the neighborhood also. So there you go, once again another bullshit complaint filed against me, and how it ended up, and what always happens, I guess. So hope you enjoyed the story, and if you did, come back next Thursday. If you don't, go watch somebody else's channel. This is Rob on the back porch, healing up from shoulder surgery. Try to say that 5 times without slurring your words. Okay, for those who care, the shoulder's doing pretty good. It's a slow healing process. I get started with physical therapy next week. Hopefully that's going to help. Pain pills are working good, though. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.